What's up, guys? My name is Jake Paulson. You're listening to another episode of the Jake C. Paulson podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about failure. So strap in, get ready. We're going to be talking about how to use failure to your advantage. Okay, a lot of us think failure is like the end-all, be-all failure, right? But it's not. You can actually use it to get ahead. So that's what we're going to discuss today. I want to start off with a quote from Napoleon Hill. This is from the book called Think and Grow Rich. Another great book. Dive into that book. It's hard to read, but give it a try. He says in his book that every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Again, he says every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Failure is always a hard thing to go through in the moment. We all know that. But it's never the end-all be-all until you let it be. Because if you let it be the end-all be-all, then guess what? It's going to be. So today we're going to discuss how instead of being knocked down by your failures, you could be inspired by them to increase your influence in your leadership, your business, and your community. So let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to be talking about pretty much a 5-step process to use your failure to your advantage. Use your failure to your advantage. It's really, really simple. Hang with me. I'm going to use some analogies and some things that I found on the internet to help. Okay, so bear with me here. Number one is to get out and try. Number one of the 5-step process is to fail. That simple, cut and dry. 5-step process to using failure to your advantage. Number one is to fail. No one ever achieves something great without trying. So get out there and try. Don't try to fail. Just go out there and try. Odds are you'll fail, and then you'll learn. Teddy Roosevelt once said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there's no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows that in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat." So, essentially he's saying here, if you don't try, you're not going to fail. And if you fail, you're going to figure something out, right? All those people that don't try, he's essentially saying those are the cold, timid souls who don't know victory because they never tried, but they also don't even know defeat. And the ones who know victory know defeat. So I thought that was a great quote. That's why I would put it in here. It's one of the most inspiring quotes that I've ever read. But in the 5-step process, failing is just the absolute beginning, because everyone's failed before. I looked up a bunch of successful people that have failed before. J.K. Rowling was one of them. She became a billionaire. She was the writer of Harry Potter. She wrote the series. And before her first book was ever published, kind of hilarious, but 12 publishers turned her down before she actually got the one published. So she went from failure to failure to failure to failure to failure to failure to failure 12 times, and then the 13th was published. Lucky number 13. And now she's a billionaire, right? Another one, Colonel Sanders. He failed his entire life in business until he was later in age. I think he was 65. And he decided to go to tons of businesses and pitch this idea for a franchise of fried chicken, a fried chicken recipe franchise. And eventually, after what it says is after 1,009 companies turned him down, he got one yes. All it took was that one. And now there's KFC everywhere, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Another one, Thomas Edison. He went through 10,000 failures to create a light bulb back in the 1800s. So 10,000 times he failed before he was one yes, before it was one go, one green light. They all failed, but there was a unique way that they viewed their failures. In all of these successful people that I looked at, there's a unique way that they just look at their failures differently, from a different lens, in a different perspective. Like, for instance, Thomas Edison, he said he didn't fail 10,000 times. He never said that. He said he just found 10,000 ways that it didn't work until he found one. He didn't necessarily say that he failed. He just said, it just didn't work 10,000 times. And then I found one that did. So that's the first step. Get out there, try, fail. Step number 2, identify the cause of the failure. Okay, this could be either very easy or it could be very, very hard, depending on how big your ego is. Because when you fail at something, a lot of times, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, but a lot of times we have blind spots. Everybody does. Everybody has some type of blind spot that they can't see, but other people are like, oh, wow, obviously that's a weakness of yours, you know? So whether it's in leadership or business, or you're striving to be successful at something and you fail, a lot of times feedback is always a great thing to have in your corner. So asking friends, or asking peers, or asking coworkers, or asking your boss, or asking the people that you lead as well. Asking all those people for feedback is a very good way to learn what caused the failure. Because if you never know what caused it, how are you going to get better at it? Just doesn't make any sense, right? So we all have to just lose the ego to get better at whatever the failure was. Some of us have huge egos, some of us have small ones, but either way, you have to lose the ego until, you might be left behind because you were too good to get feedback. And that's never a good thing. Plus, if you never get feedback and the people you lead are just looking at you this whole time, knowing that you have this huge weakness that you don't even know about, they're either going to think you're dumb, incompetent, or they're going to think that you just don't care about them and you don't care about getting better. And that's not a good trait to have as a leader or business owner or just person, I guess. So that's number 2, identify the cause of the failure. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's pretty easy. It's pretty blatant what it is. So number 2, identify it. Number 3, own it. Once you identify what it is that you failed at, own it. Just take ownership. It's funny, doing all this research about successful people that failed, it actually gave me some intriguing discoveries about why they failed and why they didn't talk about their failure back then and why it's such a big thing now. It's funny, the more you dig into like a successful person, the more failures you'll find. But again, they don't view failures as this is what the end all be all was to my career. This is really just what helped me get there. A lot of these successful people pretty much attribute their failures to their success. They say that in a lot of ways, the reason they're successful is because of all of the failures and all of the things that they failed at. And now their perspective on failure is essential to their success. Their failures are essential. So it's kind of funny. But I realized that they failed and realized that they realized what they failed at and they just got better at it. But in the moment, they probably were not so quick to take ownership of what they failed at. So this is a really, really tough one. Number 3 is to own it. I've learned this a lot of different ways. I've failed at a bunch in work, in relationships, and it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to look yourself in the mirror and own it. It's really, really hard, and it takes a long process to do it. But a lot of these successful people, they start talking about these things that cause them to find the right solutions to their failures long after they've already been successful. Yes, it was hard work to find the right solutions. Yes, it was probably hard to take ownership of it in the moment, but this is like the one thing when you take ownership of it, it allows you to move on. And then later, once you actually are allowed to move on, what you'll find is that this failure is really just a symptom of success. It's really just life going, hey, if you want to be really successful at this, you're going to need to stop doing this. So here's a big failure for you to figure that out. There's a good lesson to learn right there. So all these successful people just figured that out really early. So that's number 3, is to just take ownership of it. Very hard to do, but necessary. Number 4, make the changes necessary. So once you've taken ownership of it, make the changes that you need to make. Some of us have heard the quote before. I know I have. That the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Right? I don't know if you guys have heard that, but it's not true. That's not the definition. It's kind of funny. I was looking it up and I was like, that's not the definition at all. What the heck? It's actually just a saying. It's just something that people say. I looked it up, like the originated version of it, and it's from 1983. There's 2 instances that people said something similar. There's this girl talking about women and alcoholism. That's what I read. And she talked about, doing the same thing over and over again is going to lead to different results. That's insane. And then there was this guy, a DEA guy, that was talking about drug addiction. So that's where those sayings came from. And then all of a sudden they were in books. Then all of a sudden they were probably on shows, or I don't know how it took off, but crazy. I thought that was the actual definition. Look it up. It's not. Kind of funny. But nonetheless, it's a great fit. It's a great quote and a great fit for what we're talking about, because if you don't make the changes, nothing's going to change. Pretty simple, right? If you don't make the changes to move on with intention of getting better, then nothing's going to get better. I personally think that you should make a change to try to fail better, because you're going to fail, right? It's just going to happen. No one ever did something on the first try. Maybe someone did, but that's luck. Okay, all those really successful people with high character, and that's how I judge successful people, is where is their character at. They've just failed over and over again, and they've eventually figured it out. They started failing better and better and better and better and better, and then they failed greatly, right? And they got better at it, and then they succeeded. So that's making changes. That's number 4. Pretty simple. Just make the changes necessary. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. Number 5, go for it. Once you've finally found out what needs to be changed, you owned it, you made the changes, go for it. Do it again. Frickin' go for it. Obviously every step of this 5-step, process is important, but I believe that the faster you can get on the horse and try again and again and again, the more sane you'll be. I always think of like skateboarding. I used to skateboard back in high school, and to give you how good I was, I could do a kickflip, and I could ollie like 4 stair, which is 4 stairs, and I could like jump over it on the skateboard, roll, and then land and roll again. So I wasn't the greatest. I was a beginner. But the reason I compare this to skateboarding is because every time let me put it this way. Compared to a professional, I was a total beginner at skateboarding. Professionals, I was looking this up. There's this staircase called the Lion 25, Lyon 25. And it's essentially 25 staircase. So 25 stairs on a staircase. And these guys would go so fast on a skateboard and jump with the skateboard and land and try to roll away. 25 stairs. I have no idea how tall that is, or how long it is. That's insane. I was watching this video of this guy doing it, and he just lands and he'll break the board in half and snap and do the splits from 25 stairs up. That's ridiculous. But anyways, it's crazy the amount, like he'll stop and hit a rock and fall forward and like tumble. And the point is that it's never first try that they get it. They don't ever get it first try. A lot of times it takes like multiple tons of tries, multiple days, a lot of times, to do this one trick of jumping over the staircase. And when you jump something like that, it's never like you do it and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it got easier the second time. No, it doesn't just get easier the second time. Yes, the first time you do it, you might think, okay, well, now I know what I did wrong. And now I know what not to do. I can't land with my foot in the middle of the board because it's just going to break the board and I'm going to do the splits again. So I don't want to do that again. But when I equate this to when I was in high school, I didn't do 25 stairs, but I did they have those things in the back of the buildings. Gosh, I forget what it's called. It's like, anyways, I did 4 stairs once. And a loading dock, that's what it is. I did a loading dock once. And the first time I would roll up to it and I would stop because I'm scared and I don't really want to do it because I'm thinking of all the random things that can go through my head or happen. All these negative things are going through my head when I'm running up to go jump off this thing with the skateboard. And then I finally do it once. I finally get the courage to do it once. And I fall, but I realize, oh, that was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. And then I go back up to do it again, and I realize that I'm like procrastinating doing it again. And the fear is like building up of all the possible scenarios that could happen on the second round. It's like the stress just builds up and builds up and builds up. And you start thinking of all the things that can possibly happen. So I think the best way to delete all that stress and just not think is to just go and do it again. The faster you can just go and do it again and again and again and again, the less you're going to think, the more you're going to accomplish, and the better you're going to feel after. Like every time you procrastinate, you're just building up that stress. You're just building up that fear. And you're slowly losing your nerve to try again. And you see it in everything, whether it's a relationship. You just got out of this long relationship. The more you wait to get into another one, the more fear of getting your heart broken, or whether it's a business, the business just failed. The longer you wait, the more that fear is going to build up. And you're going to lose your nerve to start that business when you really were fearless when you started the other one. Same thing here. So to recap this 5-step progress, otherwise known as FIOMG, otherwise known as FIOMG. Just to recap, number 1 is to fail. Fail daringly. Fail big. Number 2, identify the cause of why you failed. Why did you fail? Number 2. Number 3, own it. Take action. Own that failure. Like that's going to be the reason you're successful, is that failure right there. Own it in the moment. Number 4, make the changes necessary to succeed and go for another. And then, that's number 5. Go for it. All right. So I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, leave a like, leave a comment as well. And if it was really helpful and it was impactful to you, seriously, share it with one friend. Think about one friend right now that would benefit from using failure to their advantage. Maybe someone that you've seen fail and took it the wrong way and hasn't tried again. Send this to them. Just that one person. All right. It's super helpful for me. It's helpful for the podcast to grow itself naturally, but it's also helpful for the audience as well. So I appreciate you guys. Catch us next time, next Monday. We'll be talking about something totally different. And I hope to see y'all then. Until then, let's get after it. Peace.